morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to attend this latest boot camp, Cracking the Code to Growing Your MSP. So if you haven't attended any of my boot camps in the past, my name is Stephanie Hammond. I am the head nerd that's responsible for all things sales and marketing related. I've been with Enable for a little while. You can see my contact information there on the screen. I'm on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, we should be linked together. And you can also get me by email as well. So just a couple of housekeeping reminders before we get going. I do have everyone on mute. That's just to maintain call quality. But if you're having any audio video issues or any questions as I'm going through everything today, then I encourage you to enter those comments, feedback, questions into the question panel, and I will do my best to answer as many of them as I can during today's live session. If for some reason I'm not able to answer the question live, I do commit to getting an answer back to you, probably tomorrow, because I am delivering another version of this boot camp later on this afternoon as well. This session is not being recorded. The reason being is I think this is probably my fourth time now delivering this boot camp. So there is already a version of this boot camp that has been recorded, and it was uploaded into the Enable You section of Enable Me. So if you're looking for an on-demand version of this to maybe listen to some parts afterwards, or if you wanted to have some other people from your team listen to the bootcamp as well, you can find a copy within Enable You. All right, so just as kind of a regroup of where we stand with all of my training, because if you've attended my training in the past, you know there's a system, there's a process, there's a journey to the training that I put together. And so last week, I actually delivered the last boot camp of what I call the MSP growth planning process series, and it was focused on account management and how do you build an executive business review or QBR process for your MSP. Starting today, we're starting back at the top. So we're kind of restarting the whole training series again from the beginning, and we're kicking it off with today's boot camp, which is Cracking the Code to Growing Your MSP. And you can see that it's highlighted there in yellow. And then at the end of the boot camp, I do have dates for probably 4 or 5 boot camps that are coming up in the series. And so there's still time to register for those because they don't take place until October. But we're starting up at the top of the journey again. So what are we going to be covering in today's session, this beginning session of this journey? We're going to be talking about how there's a chasm growing. It's been growing for several years. It's continuing to grow. The great MSPs, they are continuing to grow. They're continuing to excel and make money, but there's still a pretty significant portion of MSPs that are remaining stagnant, and they are continuing to struggle. So in this boot camp, we're going to be reviewing the 3 pillars of excellence for measuring MSP success, and we're going to be reviewing what makes the top MSPs the best-in-class MSPs for a reason. And so the first pillar of excellence is all around the importance of having a focus, having a direction for your business. That really involves taking the time to develop what I call a growth roadmap for your business to provide you with that vision, and then for it to really act as your compass for your MSP. Because for sustainable growth, MSPs need to be consistently strategizing on different ways that they can advance their business forward, and ensuring that you have a documented business roadmap that is providing your MSP with direction and focus. That's going to be one of the keys to success. And so we are going to examine a step-by-step methodology of creating kind of an effective business roadmap for your MSP so that you can use it to help you meet your revenue and growth goals and objectives that you may have. The second pillar of excellence centers around all things sales, focusing on ways to help you grow, improve your MSP, maybe correct any negative trends that you may be seeing, especially if your MSP is having maybe a little bit of revenue or profitability or cash flow issues at the moment. And then we're going to talk about the third pillar of excellence, and this is where we're going to focus on a small sliver of what my colleague Joe Furla talks about in his operational efficiency boot camps. I'm taking a small sliver out of what he does, and we're going to be talking about some of the best practices on how to become more operationally efficient, especially if your team may be feeling a little overworked, they might be feeling a little overrun, to the point where you can't take on any more business. And I bring this up in this boot camp because when I used to, manage my own series of accounts, we'd be talking about growth strategies and plans for the future. And I would have more MSPs than I would like tell me that they couldn't really invest in any sales or marketing at the moment because they didn't have the time to take on any new clients because their existing clients were keeping them so busy. And that is not a great growth model. It's actually a very poor business model. If you're saying that, yeah, I can't do sales and marketing right now because I can't take on new clients, I'm too busy with the ones that I have. So if that's, if you kind of can understand that sentiment yourself, then we're going to look at, in a small sliver, how maybe you're operating internally and look at the processes or maybe lack thereof that you have in place today, because you should never be put in the position of having to turn away good business. So as I said, we're going to be talking a little bit about operational efficiency. If this is an area that you would like to improve with your MSP practice, then I definitely encourage you to head into Enable You and look under Joe Furla, my colleague. He does a lot of things, but one of his pillars that he focuses on is operational efficiency, and he has a wealth of information to listen to as well. All right, so let's get going. So there is this growing chasm, as I mentioned, that is growing among MSPs. Here at Enable, we've identified really 3 key market segments that MSPs typically fall in today. We have the emerging market segment, we have the growth market segment, and we have the elite market segment. And what we've been seeing happening over the last several years is this tiering of service providers, this chasm that is growing, this disparity that is developing between, MSPs that are in the marketplace, where hard decisions are going to really need to be made about the future of their businesses and how they should be moving their business forward in the coming years. And if MSPs fail to address this growing market disparity that's developing, there is the threat of them regressing and potentially being left behind. Especially when you look at all of the M&A activity. Now it has slowed down in the last year or two, but it is predicted to begin accelerating again. But the M&A activity is still prevalent in our space, and it's going to continue. And that M&A activity, it's being propelled forward by those MSPs who know where they want to take their business, who want to have a hand in the shaping of their own destiny. And those MSPs that are actively engaged in the M&A activity today, is putting them that much further ahead than their closest competitors. And so what we're seeing through all of this is this concept of this super MSP, which is just causing the chasm to grow wider, and it's driving a larger wedge between the emerging and growth segments and then those elite and super elite market segments. And we are seeing this materialize, for a little while within our own Enable partner base. We have partners that have been expanding quite dramatically through M&A activity, where we're seeing them go nationwide and even international in some cases. And through these aspirations for growth, we're now witnessing, all sorts of new players in the marketplace now, with increased skill sets, increased capabilities, and they're leveraging this to help improve and push their business forward, and that's just making the chasm bigger. So looking at the current situation that we are in today, so we're still seeing MSPs come into the market. We're still seeing startup MSPs. They're trying to enter the market. They're trying to determine where and how they fit into the MSP market landscape today. They're coming in with this perspective where, I want to be an MSP. I'm going to be an MSP, but they don't really know what that all entails. They don't know what it means to be an MSP or how to be that MSP. And so in the beginning, they're stumbling. They're trying to get their footing as they attempt to go to market with their services. and they're struggling trying to figure out who's actually going to buy their services. And they come in with the intention to avoid time and material customers. They're trying to avoid picking up break fix work, but they want to grow, and they need money to be able to grow. And so they end up lowering their standards, and they end up, probably not ideally, but they end up picking up a lot of that business that they can find just to keep the doors open and the business afloat. And so because of these challenges, these are the MSPs that are actually causing a lot of the pricing commoditization that we're still seeing in the marketplace, and it is going to continue because they are so focused on picking up the business that they can find, believing that they're actually doing the right thing to help grow their business, but they're not really understanding if this is actually smart growth for their business. And anybody that attends, any of my boot camps, I'm all about building a quality, smart book of business for your MSP. So while this is happening at the same time, we're seeing this plateau in the growth and elite segments, where, good thing, they're no longer playing the pricing game. They are transitioning their sales and their marketing message, and they're now selling based on value, and they're implementing and they're enforcing, things like minimum network standards. They're enforcing things like minimum monthly spends if an organization would like to do business with them as a new MSP client. So we can see now how this chasm continues to grow and how that market is shifting. And if we use, think of that concept of the 80-20 rule, 80% of the endpoints are being managed by 20% of the service providers. And it's these 20% who are going out, attracting the larger, higher valued customers who are willing and interested in investing in their services, because it's these growth and elite MSPs. They tend to be the visionaries. They tend to be the future thinkers in the space. They're finding new revenue streams and new service offerings that they can offer to their customers. And a lot of them are leveraging private equity to do a lot of this because it allows them to take that infusion of cash and then turn around and invest it in their desired target market, much more quickly and more deeply than if they had to do it on their own. So looking at these kind of 3 tiers of MSPs, the growth MSPs, they're kind of the ones that are sitting in the middle, and they're on this philosophical precipice, I like to think of, without making noticeable changes in their performance of their business. They can go one of 2 ways. They can either shrink and regress so that they're almost equivalent to that of being like an emerging MSP again, or they're looking at what could be perceived as maybe a little bit of this daunting hill or this widening chasm that they need to kind of climb or jump over to move forward. So ultimately, MSPs, no matter where they are on the spectrum, for growth, good to focus on the 3 key pillars of their practice in order to continue to drive that business excellence and help close this chasm that has been developing. And the first is having that focus and that direction. And we talk about kind of having that business roadmap for your MSP, and then having that structured and having that organized in a way that drives efficiency. And then being able to properly plan for growth, like having, a good understanding around, what is needed to kind of help improve and increase revenues, having that good understanding of what is needed to become more profitable in order to drive that new growth. And if you happen to perform poorly in any one of these areas, that is going to impact and undermine the growth potential that you're looking to achieve for your business. All right. So let's talk about pillar 1, focusing on your direction and accomplishing this by creating an MSP roadmap for your business. And this pillar is really meant to help answer the questions that I typically receive, and it's usually around this time of year when we get into Q4 and we're starting to do our planning for the following year. I have MSPs that will say, Steph, we want to expand our managed services revenue, but we're not really sure what the next best step should be, or Steph, what are some of the areas that we should be focusing on to help grow our business. And that is really what I am trying to accomplish with all of my training. And that's really starting off with today's session, kicking off with what I'm calling that MSP growth planning process, because this is a big question. It's a loaded question. There's a lot of layers that need to be addressed to be able to help properly answer that. And so it only is going to take me about 15 boot camps, I think I have now, to be able to answer that. But hopefully at the end of today's session, you're going to have the beginnings of a plan that you can follow, with additional knowledge about a lot of the other resources and the training that you can leverage moving forward. So pillar one, again, talked about direction. It's all about goal setting, having that vision about where you want to take your business. And so this is all about creating a plan for success. Many business owners that I speak with, they'll tell me that they want to grow their business, they want to make more money. But for true growth and for true success, you kind of have to have an honest conversation with yourself around, do I really want to grow? Or am I happy just staying where I am? Because if you really do want to grow, then you need to be clear about what you need to do that's going to push your MSP forward. And that's where developing and implementing a business growth roadmap and then having the discipline to follow that business growth roadmap is going to be beneficial, because it really does come down to you as the business owner, how far you want to take your business. And I was listening to a podcast as I was developing this boot camp last year, and the topic of the podcast was, what it takes for MSPs to be successful, to grow. And one of the guests on the podcast, and I can't remember who it was now, made an incredibly insightful remark. And he said during that podcast, businesses grow to the size of the thinking of the owner. And that really struck me when he said that, that businesses ultimately grow to the size of the thinking of the owner. And so what I took this to mean is, when you're developing your plan, it really means removing your technician hat, putting on your CEO, your business owner's hat, and focusing on the things that business owners think about obsessively. And that is how to grow the business, how to make more money, how to drive efficiencies, how to manage costs so that you're continually moving your business forward. And developing a plan, implementing a plan, and then putting specific metrics in place that you can then measure yourself against for that plan, that is what's going to help get you there. Now, is the roadmap the 100% answer key to success? No, it's not necessarily going to guarantee that you are going to grow faster or that you are going to make more money, but most companies generally that are achieving kind of that consistent growth, that consistent profitability year over year, they do tend to have an actionable business growth roadmap that they do follow. So what is a business growth roadmap? This is not the same as a business plan. So if you're thinking, where you are, I'm asking you to build this very text-heavy document, that's not what we're talking about here. A business plan, that is what's really needed if you're trying to secure like funding from a bank or from investors or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about in this session today. While a business plan, it is very visionary, it tends to be more high level. A business roadmap, that is very tactical and is very specific in its details. A roadmap is used to kind of spell out what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and who needs to be involved to make it all happen. So it is about setting up immediate priorities and then determining kind of all of those, logistics that are needed to help turn that business plan into an actual reality. And so a roadmap is meant to be something that can be easily viewed at a glance. It's meant to be easily updated, as trends and as your circumstances change. And so a roadmap tends to be very dynamic and fluid in nature. Business plan typically takes that longer plan view, say 3 to 10 years out. Business roadmaps are typically about a year in length, and the sample that I'm going to show today is a year in length, but it's typically then broken into quarters, and then it helps you to build quarterly action plans out of that. And then this roadmap is then something that gets updated every year, as new priorities come out, as new tasks, new actions that are needed to continue to move your MSP closer in that direction that you want to take it. So looking at how do you structure a roadmap for your MSP so we can focus on growth. All these screenshots that you're seeing here, there's a handout that hopefully everyone sees in the handout section. I call it, what do I call it? I don't have it open. Final 2 MSP roadmap planning template. So it is just, it's not very pretty. I always joke, I'm content, I'm not pretty. But it's a Excel workbook that you can use, modify, customize it, use it as a jumping off point if this is an exercise that you've never really done for your MSP before. But we're starting off in terms of, we need to know before we know where we need to go, we kind of have to have an understanding of where we are today. So we want to do that assessment of our MSP so we can understand, what gaps or what issues is your MSP facing today, because it is only once you have a good handle on the present day situation that you'll then be able to kind of determine, everything that you need to do that should be part of your business roadmap moving forward. And so again, this is what we're going to be going through in this section, this MSP planning roadmap that I've developed. So looking at the first section, this is where we need to outline our MSP's vision. This is where we, need to ask ourselves or maybe re-ask ourselves some key questions, like things like, why did you start your business in the first place? What made you want to go into business for yourself? Thinking about, what were you hoping to achieve? What was that higher overarching goal that you had for your MSP? Was it, to build it to a certain point so that you can sell it, so that you could retire comfortably? Was it so you could grow it so that you can then pass it along to a family member? Were you looking to grow it, or do you envision, merging or acquiring other MSPs, to kind of help fuel your growth? And then really looking at, have your goals or have your expectations changed since you first opened your doors? And then looking at where you are now, do you see maybe some adjustments that have to be made to those expectations? Then we move into the goal setting section and doing a goal setting exercise. And this is where we are going to begin kind of that self-assessment exercise on how your MSP is doing today. And really in this section, you want to ask yourself, where does your MSP stand today? Because we do need a starting point, because again, we can't get to where we want to go if we don't know where things currently sit today. And so that's really the whole left-hand side of the Excel spreadsheet that you're seeing. And the hope is that as you are reflecting on these questions, as you are completing the Excel workbook, it's going to help highlight, where maybe some gaps are, where are some things that you should be working on, so that you can use that information to set plans and priorities for the next 6 to 12 months or so, and make those items part of your new roadmap. And so that's really what the right-hand side of that spreadsheet is meant to be for. Where do you see your MSP business in the next 12 months? And this first set of KPIs, so key performance indicators, that you should be tracking for your MSP, really does center around, monthly recurring revenue and its growth rate, right? That MRR is kind of the heart of our MSP business. So, when we look at key performance indicators, when we look at metrics, we want to talk about and look at, what is the total monthly recurring revenue that you're bringing in, at the start of every month today, looking at what it is on an annualized basis, and then, what percentage of your overall revenues for your MSP comes directly from the managed services side of the house. Are we 30, 40, 50%? Are we greater than 50%? Are we greater than 70%? Good information to know. And then looking at what is your total recurring revenue growth rate. And while tracking total MRR growth is good, I do encourage MSPs to break it down so that you can kind of understand, what revenue are you generating from net new customers, so like new logos, that you've onboarded. But you also should be looking at what revenue have you been able to generate from your existing customers as well, that you've been able to kind of upsell and cross-sell new products and services too. And that was a big focus of my boot camp last week, was, just because that contract is signed and you've won and onboarded a new client doesn't mean that the sales has stopped. Every MSP should have built into their practice a good profitable account management motion where you're continually leveraging your existing relationships, your existing clients for revenue growth as well. So taking that overall total revenue growth, splitting it in two between net new and existing is an important set of metrics to be tracking. And then on the right hand side, based on how you feel about today's numbers, this is where you would then document, well, what are we looking to achieve in the next 12 months? What kind of MRR growth rate are we looking to target for the next 12 months? Generally, our Horizons report is showing, we did a 2024 Horizons report in conjunction with Canalys. It came out earlier this year. Most MSPs, I think 64% of MSPs, we're anticipating at least double-digit growth, 10 to 15% double-digit growth. There was a small percentage that we're experiencing or we're expecting, 20 to 30% growth. So kind of looking at where does your MSP sit today and where you want it to sit in the next 12 months. And then on the problems with the slides this morning. There we go. So now what we want to do is look at the breakdown of our customers and, what kind of program do they happen to be in. So looking at, how many total managed services contracts clients do we have? Looking at how many new customers do you typically bring on board in the average year? Looking at this breakdown and saying, what percentage of your customers, if you're still doing break fix, are still break fix? What percentage of your customers are still maybe in an a la carte program? And I look at a la carte as being that program where they don't have everything that you sell. Maybe you've just sold them backup, or maybe you've just sold them an endpoint detection, but they're not part of your comprehensive security program. They only kind of have bits and pieces. I consider that an a la carte type of program. What percentage of your customers are still proactive? And what I mean by proactive is, maybe they're in your full security suite or your full security bundle, but all the reactive work, the help desk calls or the emergency support or the emails, those are still billed on a time material basis. So the support isn't automatically built in. It's separated out and billed separately. And then what percentage of your customers are fully managed? And that is the definition of they're in your comprehensive security program, and that program does include unlimited remote and on-site support as well. And then looking at, are you moving into co-managed, meaning are you beginning to work with organizations that have internal IT? So, what percentage of your customer base is under that co-managed model if you happen to be doing co-managed? And then once you have this customer breakdown, looking at these numbers and asking yourself, are you happy with this breakdown? Do you need to make any changes? Like as an example, if you have a larger percentage of break fix clients or a la carte clients, do you want to keep attracting and supporting these types of customers and offering these types of services? Or is it time to maybe start looking at maybe how we can redesign our programs, looking at how we can redesign our sales process so that we can maybe start selling more of the proactive or the fully managed type of customer contracts? And that's really what my October boot camps are going to be focused on, around strategies of building, pricing, marketing, and selling security programs. And how do you build out a co-managed model? So if you're noticing that, yeah, my program could use some work, they're a little bit tired, a little bit outdated, we're not attracting the right type of customer, then you may want to sit in and register for my October series of boot camps there. Especially if you are thinking you want to move up market into the co-managed space. so if you do recognize that you have that, put that, if we need to make changes to our customer makeup and to the programs that we offer, then this is something that would get documented into your business roadmap, into that roadmap planning document, and maybe put that as a top priority for your MSP for either next quarter or something that does get tackled over the next 12 months. And then looking at your existing programs and some metrics with respect to your existing programs so that you can understand how profitable your programs are. Every MSP should understand what their average contract value is. Do you know what your average deal size is based on the type of program that you do sell? Do you know what your average contract margin is for your managed services programs? I'll be talking about that next month as well, but best-in-class MSPs generally have contract margins for their programs 50, 60, 70% or more. I've actually seen security-centric MSPs build programs, their security programs that have margins of 70 or 80% because they are very specialized in security. So kind of looking at that, examining where you stand in terms of your own average deal size, in terms of your own average contract margins, and thinking about, do I need to make any changes to that? Would I like to see these numbers improve? Especially if you are making less than 50% in terms of your gross margins on your contracts, then this is something that you may see, okay, well, I want to be north of 50. I want to trend closer to what best-in-class MSPs are doing. So I'm going to document that on my roadmap and start strategizing on what changes do I need to make to help improve that. Okay. And then another key metric that MSPs should be tracking and should be continually monitoring and measuring is what we call our MSP burn rate. If you've ever attended, back in the day, Gary Pica, he introduced this concept of the MSP's turning point. But the late Mike Cullen, he always referred to this as an MSP's burn rate. And he talked about this metric, this health metric, all the time in his calls with MSPs. And he defined the burn rate as being when all of your operating expenses, all of your overhead are covered by your monthly recurring revenue. So all of your employee expenses, all of your owner's compensation, that is all covered by your monthly recurring revenue that's generated from your MSP business. And once you get this burn rate greater than 1, what it means is that every dollar of non-recurring revenue and every dollar of hardware margin, the benefit is that goes right to your bottom line. But when you're below 1, what it means is that you are relying on non-recurring stuff to kind of pay the bills and to break even. And best-in-class MSPs, they all have burn rates that are well above 1. And so you should know where you stand in terms of your own MSP's burn rate, because that is what's going to kind of help drive the direction and drive the decisions that you need to make, for your MSP. And it's going to really help you set your priorities and what your priorities should be, because then this all gets documented to your roadmap, right? So that you can make a plan as to what you need to do to improve the situation. Because there's really only 2 ways to improve your burn rate, right? What do you need to do to increase your monthly recurring revenue? And then what do you need to do to help reduce and better control your expenses? And so that's really what the next 2 pillars of excellence are that we're going to be reviewing today. That's going to address specifically, I kind of think of them as levers, right? Like how you can work to improve your burn rate if you are finding that your burn rate is less than 1. And then just looking at some other key performance indicators, KPIs that you might want to track for your MSP. I have some more here around productivity, account management, profitability, and sales and marketing. So again, these are all part of that template workbook that you can download. And then you want to kind of set your priorities, for the next 12 months, because as you go and then reflect on these KPI metrics, if they are not ideally where you would like them to be, if you're missing your sales targets or if you're not as profitable as you would like, then think about what could be done to improve these over the next 12 months. And so here in this section, we do want to document, kind of the top 5 priorities that are the most pressing for your MSP that you do want to tackle over the next 12 months. And these priorities, this comes from having that honest assessment and that review of the different KPI metrics to look at those areas of your MSP that might be preventing you from achieving, your vision. And so we want to break these priorities down and really work on selecting a focus for each quarter, and then making it a priority to do what you can to get that particular priority crossed off your list. You may have referred to these, in different EOS trainings as rocks. You pick a rock for each quarter and you focus on that rock for that quarter. Because if you can focus on kind of one priority item for each quarter, you're pretty much guaranteed to start moving the needle and make progress within your MSP, so that the next quarter you're in a little bit better position than what you are currently. And again, that's the whole goal of the roadmap, right? And so I encourage you, if this is something that you are going to undertake, this isn't something we're going to rush through. Give yourself the gift of time to properly work on each key priority item, whatever that happens to be each quarter. And then at the end of each quarter, you do want to go back and revisit your roadmap, revisit the priorities, review the numbers so you can, see, what you may need to focus on for the next quarter. Maybe it's the same, maybe you're noticing that there's something different that has creeped up, but that would come at the next quarter. You really want to do what you can to minimize the distractions that might be causing you to deviate from your roadmap. So there does take some discipline to this, to stay focused and stay committed to the plan. If something comes up that isn't part of the original plan or isn't a priority item right now that you're working on, like in that quarter, just put a pin in it, make a note, and then when you do your quarterly planning for the next quarter, then you can kind of see and revisit that item at that time and see if, okay, well, this is now a new priority for me. Let's make it maybe a rock for the next quarter. But don't, while you're within the quarter and working your plan, don't get distracted by other priorities that come up and then, kind of throw the plan out the door and start putting a new plan in place because all of a sudden you feel that there's a new priority to work on. Just put a pin on it and focus on it for next quarter. So question, why aren't product COGS included? I haven't put that on because when you think about managed services, it really is, it's services. So I focus more on subscription services like the software licensing. When you think about how do you price out your programs, right? Like if anybody's taken my how do you price out managed services, we really are focusing on the software that goes in to deliver the service. We focus on the labor that is used to deliver the service. We're not really thinking about, the products unless you're thinking products in terms of software. But in terms of, kind of the hardware and stuff, I haven't put that in. But it might be something to consider. But that's kind of I was thinking it more of from a services standpoint, because really that's what this is. It's managed services, security services. Okay. All right. And okay, so then the last part is where we need to then outline, all of the activities that need to be completed that's going to work to help address those business challenges that maybe you have identified. And that's kind of what the bottom section is. So here we do want to outline, who is going to be owning it, who's going to be responsible for completing each activity. Don't be afraid to delegate and then to hold people accountable, because you can't do this all on your own. If you're a business owner with 18 hats and 14 plates in the air, you can't do this all on your own. So here you do want to see if there's other people within your team and assign those tasks to those team members, because that's also going to help you realize if you have any resourcing issues that need to be addressed, and that may impact the priorities or really who does what. And I do recommend being transparent and bringing your staff into this exercise, bring them into this process, because by demonstrating this kind of visibility, that's what's going to get everyone to understand what you're trying to achieve with your MSP, and it's going to help get a good understanding of what everyone's roles and responsibilities are to help get the company there. And it's going to allow you to kind of help set expectations for the whole team and create that level of accountability, because everyone, whether you are the business owner, whether you're in sales, whether you're on tech, everyone plays an instrumental role in the overall success of the company. Okay. So let's look at the second pillar, and this is all around planning for growth. So thinking back to our MSP burn rate and that concept that there's really only two ways that we can improve this metric. We can either, reduce and better manage our costs, or we can increase our MRR sales. So with this particular pillar, when we're putting a plan together to improve not only our MRR, and that's obviously going to help us improve our burn rate, but we also want to look at ways at which we can uncover new revenue opportunities for our MSP, because I talked about this in several of my boot camps, but there's really only three ways that we can generate more recurring revenue for our MSP. That's going to have a positive impact on our burn rate. We can sign and win on more clients, absolutely. We can get our existing clients to spend more money with us, and we can get our clients to spend more money with us more often. And that's really kind of the purpose behind the QBRs, is kind of having those ongoing regular meetings with the customer. You have the technology budget, the technology plan, so that you're looking at, what projects are coming down the pipeline, so that you're constantly being able to forecast, hopefully, new projects with your existing clients to kind of help build up your own internal pipeline. So let's look at revenue driver number one, how we can win more clients. And to really kickstart all of this, we first want to determine what is our sales goals for the year ahead. And so part of the roadmap planning template, I do have this kind of simplistic MSP sales target calculator in there for you to use, that I wanted to provide a sample of. So this is what you're seeing here. It's an MSP sales goal calculator. Once you have, kind of set like your annual MRR sales goal, the idea behind this calculator is then to help you determine, well, what sort of activities do I need to complete every month to help meet that MRR sales goal that you've set for yourself. So I wanted to spend a few moments going through that today. So anything that you see in green, that's a direct input that you would add into the calculator. And so the first direct input is, looking at, well, what is the new additional MRR target that you would like to have for this year? Maybe you want to grow your MRR by 25%, 25,000 this year. So this calculator is going to show you what you need to do on a monthly basis to reach that number. So then we need to kind of input what our average contract value is, and that's why I kind of had that as an initial KPI, because every MSP should understand, or at least have an understanding what their average contract value is. So let's say that our average contract value is $2,000 a month. I really thought of this as, $100 a seat at 20 seat organization. Again, I'm keeping the numbers very simplistic. And then we want to input what our close ratio is. Generally, a decent close rate is anywhere between 20 to 30%. But again, I've just put 20% here as my example. Then once you've entered in these three numbers, the MRR goal, the monthly MRR goal, is then automatically determined. And this is just, simple math. It's taking our 25,000 annual new MRR target that we've set, and we're just dividing it by 12 months. So that's how we get the $2,083. And then the number of new clients per month gets calculated, and this is just basically taking the 2,083, dividing it by our average contract value of $2,000. So basically telling us we need to bring on one new customer a month, or 12 to 13 new clients a year to reach our new 25,000 MRR target for the year. But now we kind of need to think about, what are the sales activities that we need to do to reach this new goal of one new client a month. So looking at, what do we need to do to kind of help build up that pipeline? So another direct input that you're going to want to enter is, and again, I'm calling these assumptions, the number of dials per day. Whether this is completed by an in-house telemarketer, or maybe you decide to outsource the appointment setting to a third party. Either way, for consistent and ongoing revenue growth, there does have to be some sort of telesales motion in place for this function. So if you don't have anyone in this role today, this appointment setting or telemarketing function, then this may be something that you want to correct. And so this would be something else that might get added onto your MSP roadmap. So in our example, let's say that we expect our appointment setter just to make 30 dials a day. That's low. I know our SDRs here at Enable, they're expected to make upwards of 100 calls a day. But again, I wanted to make this manageable because this may be something that's being done on kind of a part-time basis for you, especially if you happen to be a smaller MSP or you don't have the necessary resources. I'm assuming a 5-day work week. So that would then equate to 150 dials a week, 600 dials a month. And then another assumption that we have to make is, what do we feel the daily prospect contact rate is going to be? So assuming your appointment setter is able to connect with 20% of who they're calling, they should be able to connect with 6 contacts per day, making that 30 contacts in a week. And then another assumption that we need to make is, well, how many of those people that your appointment setter connects with will actually want to meet with you, and you being the business owner, or maybe you do have a dedicated account executive. So here we are assuming that 5% of those that your appointment setter manages to connect with each day, they agree to an appointment. So your appointment setter should be looking to book, 1 to 2 appointments per week and about 6 appointments per month for whoever is doing sales within your company, whether that's you as the business owner or someone else dedicated to the position. And then based on your 20% close rate that we kind of entered up at the top of the calculator, this will net you, your 1 new client a month that you need to meet your monthly and your annual MRR target that you've set for yourself. So again, just more of a simplistic type of calculator, but I like this version because it's taking kind of that big, ugly sales goal, but then it works to kind of quickly distill that down and convert that down into what are the key activities that you need to be doing on a consistent basis over the course of a week, a month, a year to kind of help achieve and meet that big, hairy sales goal. So again, I try to make the math simple as possible, manageable, reasonable as possible. I think 6 appointments per month to get 1 new client a month, that should be manageable for every MSP who does put a focus on their growth and on this activity. If this doesn't seem manageable or realistic for you, then this is, again, another roadmap item. Think about how you can strategize and document via the roadmap, what steps do you need to take to make this a priority and make it seem more reasonable and manageable for you, for 2025 and beyond. So as you're working through the MSP sales goals calculator, if you are struggling with, how do I go about building a proper marketing and lead gen strategy to help build awareness of my MSP, drive leads to my business, or how do I go about implementing an appointment setting, a telemarketing motion for my MSP? How do I build up my pipeline of prospects so I can get that 1 new client each month? I do have a couple of boot camps that address these particular topics. Building your marketing strategy, building your telesales strategy. I don't think these are going to be delivered live again until probably November-ish, but you can find them on demand within Enable You. And if you have problems finding any of these different boot camps that I'm referencing, just send me an email or put something in the question panel and I can send you the direct links. All right, MRR driver number 2, getting our clients to spend more money with us. Winning and signing on net new clients, one way to increase revenues for your MSP. We can use that to help us reach our annual sales goals. It's also the most costly option. There's a 2022 MSP benchmarking profitability report. It gets released every year from Service Leadership. In the latest report that we have at Enable, because I don't think we have the 2023, it is estimated that an average MSP spends between $26,000 and $31,000 to win and onboard a new client. Now, there's a lot that goes into that number. You know, we're talking about sales and marketing salaries. We're talking about commissions and bonuses. We're talking about all the program and the marketing materials that are developed, all the software systems, all the overhead that's put in place to run and manage the sales and marketing activities. It's an incredibly high number, and it's one that continues to grow. In the 2019 report, the customer acquisition costs back then were estimated to be around $23,000 per person. So that's a lot of money. So with this driver, I kind of wanted to think about what are some other, what I feel easier ways to increase revenues for your MSP that will still help you meet your revenue targets. And one of those easier ways is by focusing on your existing clients, because those are your clients that you've already done the work. You already have those clients, and it's always going to be easier to sell to your existing clients than trying to go out and consistently try and win new clients for your MSP. Because even though our sales goal calculator stated that we need to sign on 1 new client a month, 12 to 13 new clients a year to reach our 25,000 annual sales target, if you notice, it also outlined for us a net new recurring revenue target as well of that 2,083. So if we can kind of strategize via our roadmap planning, you know, what can we do each month to reach that 2,083 number, but maybe look at it from an account management perspective, that too will also help us reach our 25,000 goal for this year. So this whole point of this driver in my boot camp last month was, don't discount what going back and mining your existing customer base could do to help you meet your sales goals as well. And I pulled this slide from last month's or last week's boot camp. Robert Herjavec, we all know who he is. He's from Shark Tank. He was our keynote speaker at an Empower a couple of years ago, and the talk that he gave was really focusing on growth and expansion via account management. And he told the partners that were present, 85% of revenue comes from expansion from your existing base. So focus on expanding with the customers you have by constantly upselling to them. And so that's really the point of this next revenue driver, you know, get our existing clients to spend more money with us. This particular slide does come from that service leadership report that I quoted a little bit earlier. And this slide is comparing kind of the financial metrics of best-in-class MSPs who are doing very well versus the median MSPs versus the bottom quartile MSPs. And again, looking at the services gross margins percentage column, I wanted to highlight here that best-in-class MSPs, they are achieving almost a 50% gross margin on their service contracts. And I think here at Enable, we're seeing that being a little bit more. I know our business transformation, I think from their benchmarking program, they're seeing almost 62% services gross margin on contracts. So it's a good range there. But when you compare it to the median MSPs, they're achieving less than 44% gross margin on their services, and bottom quartile MSPs are achieving just 38%. So what are best-in-class MSPs doing to achieve this? And one of the things is that they are committed to selling only their fully managed program, you know, whether this is a fully managed security program, or if you're not security centric, just your regular fully managed program. But the idea is that it includes a standardized tech stack, and that standardized tech stack is implemented across all your clients. So best-in-class service providers, they're not selling a la carte. They're not offering and selling and supporting different multiple products. They stick to selling and implementing, you know, one backup solution, one EDR solution, one firewall solution. They also are more disciplined at selling their fully managed program at a higher monthly price point than 3/4 of the other MSPs that are out there. And they make it a point to continually analyze their prices to ensure that they are charging enough for their services. So they're constantly reevaluating the price that they charge their clients. And when they're setting their prices, they make sure that their prices reflect, you know, the quality of the services that they're providing, their expertise, their competencies, the amount of risk that they're undertaking on behalf of their customers, and they ensure that they're building in a proper risk premium for their services. And so their goal really is not to be the cheapest MSP in their marketplace. They actually tend to be more of the most expensive MSPs in their marketplace, and they tend to focus on ways that they can differentiate themselves from their competitors. And this is where you'll see them promoting themselves as specialists, specialists in security, specialists in cloud, specialists in business consulting. And they're very verticalized, giving their specialized services to a particular set of industries. They also have a very keen understanding as to what types of organizations they want to have as clients. And they stick to that baseline standard when they're doing their marketing, when they're doing their lead gen. They focus on gaining and maintaining good quality customers who understand what it means to be in a partnership. Best-in-class MSPs, they do seem to have a better understanding of what good revenue is versus poor revenue, and they don't allow their customers to negotiate on price, and they don't allow their customers to dictate their own path to support. And so because of that mindset that best-in-class MSPs have, they're okay with walking away from a deal that could pull down their revenue and profitability levels, because they don't feel that they need to kind of pick up every nickel that they find. But unfortunately, that's precisely what the bottom quartile of the market is doing. They are the ones that are commoditizing their prices. They're the ones that are very focused on, just signing on any client that will agree to do business with them. And oftentimes they will dive their prices in an attempt to win that business. And that's just not a good, sustainable business practice moving forward. Best-in-class MSPs also make a point of performing pre-sales assessments, while they're in the sales motion, but they also charge for those assessments during the sales process. And they're generally just more efficient when it comes to their overall sales practices, because they are very much, kind of process-oriented than the median and bottom quartile MSPs. And lastly, best-in-class MSPs, they are the ones that are leveraging quarterly business reviews, QBRs. I call them EBRs, executive business reviews, but best-in-class MSPs, they leverage these to uncover new services, new projects from their customers, and they work at keeping their project teams much busier than the medium and bottom quartile MSPs. So not only are they bringing on new customers more often at higher price points, they're also doing a wonderful job on the account management side as well, mining for additional business from their existing clients. So how can we get our clients to spend more money with us so that we can meet that monthly recurring revenue goal of $2,083? Again, first, as we mentioned in that last slide, best-in-class MSPs don't do break fix. They don't accept time material. They don't engage in pure project work for their customers. Every customer has to be under some sort of recurring revenue model with them. They also do not sell a la carte. Instead, they have pivoted and they have embraced the fully managed comprehensive security model for every single one of their clients, meaning that they have maybe 1 or 2 standardized managed services programs at most that all clients have to be enrolled in, and they only sell those packages. And so if this is something that you're looking to maybe think about as well, how would you incorporate this strategy into your MSP and then obviously get it onto your roadmap? If you're still offering reactive a la carte programs, if you still have time material programs, start creating a minimum viable security program that everyone gets upgraded to if they are under these legacy types of service offerings. And don't make any exceptions for it. Get everyone standardized on that minimum viable security program, because given the threat landscape today, the impact a breach can have on your customer's business as well as your own, the risk is really too high for clients to only be in an a la carte program or allowing them to kind of pick and choose which services they receive from you, because they have to meet some sort of preconceived budget. And then moving forward, you only sell that program moving forward to new clients. It's kind of like drawing a line in the sand, and then you kind of stop selling your services in that a la carte type of menu, and you only sell in this new standardized bundled approach moving forward. And by developing a standardized managed services package, hopefully having an emphasis on security, that is what's going to give you the ability to then raise your average per seat price. And that's going to naturally increase your average contract size and increase the amount of MRR that you're generating off of these clients. In my boot camps next month on how do you build, price, market, sell security, we take you through a pricing exercise. And MSPs in our pricing exercise, they're charging anywhere from, for a comprehensive security program, $200, probably at the low end. I've seen it as high as $350, $375. I've had MSPs tell me for the high end. So if you're well below that, just by going through this exercise of let's revisit our programs, let's get them standardized, let's go back and talk to our customers and see what we can do about getting them into a more comprehensive type of security program, that could go a long way of increasing your monthly MRR and increasing your average deal size. And so if you know that you don't have customers that are fully protected, from cyber threats that are out there today, this could be something that you add to your roadmap. Into your planning activities, again, making it a priority to maybe have more of a focus on security and redesign our programs to be in that way. So if you're looking for that kind of help, starting in October, that's what we're going to be talking about for the whole month of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, is how do you build, price, market, sell, and build a cybersecurity business. And then make it a point to schedule an executive business review with every single client that's not currently enrolled in your new security program. Upgrade them into one of those new packages. And if you've attended my boot camps in the past, you would have seen this. This is what I call a customer white space opportunities matrix. Just showing a screenshot here, but you can see that it is included as part of that template that you can download. But basically what you're doing is a simple Excel spreadsheet. We're kind of listing out all of those single a la carte MRR services along the top that we might be selling individually today or as a one-off today. I'm thinking your backup, I'm thinking your EDR, maybe you're selling patching, maybe you're selling email filtering, MDR on their own. And then down the side is you listed all your customers. And then for each customer, you basically put an X on which services are they currently purchasing from you, and then we tally up what their MRR spend is with you currently. And so by doing this type of exercise, this is really going to highlight very quickly for you which of your customers have which services with you, and it'll help you determine where we need to add more services, and then figure out what that delta is going to be in terms of what they're paying you today versus what they could be paying for you if they're under your standardized program. And then you would use this information to then rank or prioritize which customers you're going to meet with first. And then you can decide, maybe you speak with and start with those customers who are spending the least amount of money with you, because there's the greatest opportunity there to get the quick hits, the quick wins, and the immediate increase in your MRR. Or maybe you decide to start at the top and start with those customers who are spending the most money with you, but maybe they're just missing one or two key services. So the price increase won't be that dramatic for them to get them into your new standardized security program. Because again, it won't be as shocking. And this was something that I used to do all the time when I was in sales. Like I got transitioned from new territory to new territory more often than I would like to, I would have wished. But anytime I got moved into a new sales territory, this was my first activity. I looked at all my partners, all my MSPs in my territory. I looked at what products they had, what products they didn't have, what they were spending with us, and then that allowed me to kind of strategize in terms of, okay, who are going to be, my priorities to kind of focus on. And it worked really well to the point where it allowed me to consistently hit my sales targets every month. Another way to get clients to spend more money with you to help you meet your regular or your recurring revenue target is implementing regular price increases. One of the biggest mistakes that I do see MSPs make is they do neglect to institute a regular cadence and schedule when it comes to program price increases. Your costs go up every year, whether it's your business costs or whether you're having to deal with general increases in inflation. So to maintain your own profitability levels, you have to build in price increases into your annual contract renewals because you need those to offset your increases in costs. By not implementing regular price increases, your revenues, your profitability, it's just going to keep eroding year over year, and it's going to end up having a negative impact on your business valuation levels and your growth metrics. So if you're still one of those MSPs that have never increased your prices to account for inflation, or maybe it's been a bit since your last price increase, like maybe you were raising prices, COVID hit, and you haven't, COVID's over, it's been over for several years now, and you still haven't raised prices, then that could be another action item that you want to build into your roadmap to start building in regular annual price increases into your contracts. Some of the best approaches to handling price increases, if you've never done one or it's been a little bit, there is the kind of tear off the Band-Aid approach. You're scheduling those executive business reviews, bring it up at your next business review, tell them that you have to start implementing regular annual price increases, and it's going to be effective, either at their next renewal or in the next 3 months, or I wouldn't do more than 60, 90 days because you need to offset your growing costs. Or a better approach, price increases generally do go better or accepted a little bit more easily if the customer can see that they are getting increased value in exchange for the monthly price increase. And so that's why implementing a new set of, a standardized security program, like I was talking about, along with the price increase, it works really well because then it isn't a price increase for the sake of a price increase, but you're introducing kind of a new way of doing things, a new business model, a new suite of security programs that are aimed to provide better threat protection for your customers. And that is why the monthly price is changing, because you're working to kind of standardize your customers across this new security program that you're going to market with. A good idea that I heard several years ago now is when I first started in the role, came up in one of my office hours. And if you've attended any of my boot camps, my apologies, you've probably heard me tell this story, but it was a small MSP out of the UK, London area. I think there's 5 or 6 employees that they have. And the way that they handle price increases is they introduce new security bundles every year, and they version these bundles like cars. So there would be like the 2022 security suite, the 2023, the 2024, and every customer had to be on that latest security bundle. And this was a wonderful, fantastic approach for so many reasons. First, obviously, it kept every customer on the same program with the same benefits. So from an onboarding, training, service delivery standpoint, supporting, it was very easy for the MSP to then support their customers because the tech stack was the same across the board for everyone. Also keeping in mind that the MSP, they are the ones who are the experts. And so by kind of creating these security bundles, it allowed them the flexibility and the luxury to change out the products if they found maybe better versions, or maybe they introduced new products if they felt that the threat landscape warrants it. They didn't need to go get their customers' permission first to make the changes that they needed to in terms of program design, because every year the new security bundle is automatically applied, the new pricing goes into effect. The customers then just naturally understood this arrangement right up front, and so they just accept it as being part of the business, and they don't really question it. Now, in saying this, they don't recreate the wheel every year also. What they do is they make it known to their customers that if they feel that the market landscape has changed and they feel that some changes to the product mix need to be made, then this gave them the flexibility to be able to do so, because again, they are the MSPs, they are the experts, they are the ones that live in the world of cybersecurity. When you think about what your customers are paying for, they're paying for you to keep their network safe, keep their data safe, keep their employees safe. That's what they're paying you for. They shouldn't have a say in, nor should they care, what does the security tech stack look like to be able to accomplish that for them. They're non-technical for the most part, so they don't really care or should have a say in what is needed to keep the bad guys out of their network. You're the experts. You know what is needed to keep the bad guys out of the networks. And so they work to really instill that confidence and really instill that expertise within their clients. And they've been doing this since their startup. I think they've been around for 10, 12 years now, maybe a little bit longer, but this has just been part of their program design philosophy and their sales philosophy since the start. And they're not a big MSP that implements this type of approach, and they've gained a lot of value and a lot of benefit from that. And then the last driver, MRR driver number 3, getting our clients to buy more from us more often. And this is really where, to do this, we want to prioritize those executive business review sessions that we should be scheduling at least quarterly with our top clients, or at least, you know, twice a year if you have some tier B clients, because we should constantly at least meeting with them, please, at least once a year to check in and find out how their business is going. Paul Green's MSPmarketing.com, an amazing resource for MSP sales and marketing. He phrases the concept of strategic reviews probably the best that I've ever heard it be described. He calls a strategic review as a way to systemize upselling in the business. And I really love that way of looking at it, that every MSP should be thinking of their executive business reviews in this way, as a way to systemize and create a process around how do you continually upsell to clients in your business. And EBRs are that opportunity to kind of see where your customers' growth plans are for their business. You know, what problems are they experiencing that you can help out with? When done well, they can be instrumental in helping to uncover additional project work, new sales opportunities, and that in turn helps in your forecasting and sales growth for your MSP. And as I've been referencing, I have an entire boot camp focused on this topic that I delivered a couple of weeks ago on the whole account management motion. So there is a copy of it in the Enable You if you're interested in listening to that one, if you happen to have missed it, because I do provide a framework of how do you conduct a strategic business review so that you can use those to build stronger client relationships, because we should always be looking for new sales opportunities within our existing base. We should always be looking for gaps in their business, in their technology, in their security posture, in their compliance status, and looking at ways that you can kind of close those gaps and reduce their business risk and security risk. And so this EBR session is your way to outline your concerns and bring forward your recommendations and your costs to implement. It's also a way to remove assumptions that your customers may have. And this kind of leads into a new boot camp that I'm going to be delivering in a couple of weeks in early October around, you know, how not to become a headline, how not to become a court case, because there are MSPs that are starting to be sued by their customers. Customers are getting breached. They're looking to lay blame, and they're laying blame and taking their MSPs to court. So I have a whole boot camp that's going to examine these court cases and some of the simple fundamentals that these MSPs, these 3 MSPs that were being taken to court, missed, that ended up and resulted in them landing in court. And spoiler alert, they did not do, none of them did quarterly business reviews, conversations with their customers. So their customers were assuming one level of service. The MSP was assuming a different level of service that they were responsible for. Neither one were talking, so they were pointing fingers, and they've ended up in court. And so if you're not doing EBRs today, absolutely put that on your roadmap as an important priority for 2025, and get out there and start talking to your customers. All right, I think it's time for a break before we get into the last pillar, you know, where we're going to be talking about driving efficiencies, so building operational efficiencies. We're going to be reviewing the 4 operational levers and some best practices to help improve technician utilization. But I think we deserve a 5-minute break, stretch our legs, get a refill of our coffee or water, or whatever we're having. I have it as 9:45 Eastern, so we'll come back in 5 minutes. All right, thanks guys. All right, hopefully everyone had an opportunity. Get up, stretch your legs, get a refill of coffee. So let's move into the final pillar that we want to talk about today. And that is really around driving efficiency to become more profitable. Because if you can work to improve your operational efficiencies so that you can better manage your labor costs, that too is going to move the needle in terms of improving your MSP's burn rate year over year. So again, just a reminder, I'm just going to be touching on it, scratching the surface of this particular topic. But Joe Furla within Enable You has series upon series upon series of on the topic of operational efficiency. All right, so we have been putting kind of a lot of emphasis with the first two pillars on sales goals and sales targets and how to increase our MRR, but you can't allow your roadmap to be strictly sales focused. You also need to think about how to lower our costs to be more profitable as well. So going back to the beginning, using the MSP's burn rate, you know, if you're at or below 1, yes, you can work to sell more managed services. You can work to increase your monthly recurring revenue, but you should also be making it a priority to look at ways that you can reduce your costs and reduce your expenses so you can improve your overall profitability. So this pillar is all about really striving to optimize your business practices so that you can run a more efficient organization, reduce those labor costs, because running a more efficient practice is going to help also improve your overall profitability. That's going to work to improve your burn rate, and it's also going to help you better manage the scalability aspect as you grow as well. And so this part of the boot camp really focuses on, you know, what do the best-in-class MSPs who are the top 25% in the industry do better or do a little bit differently from an operational perspective. You know, that really does set them apart from everyone else. And then as we go through each of these different best practices, these are then other items that you could maybe add on to your roadmap to improve your own business and overall profitability. That's going to have a positive impact on your burn rate. So looking at what are best-in-class MSPs doing today that helps make them so successful, again, want to include these into our business roadmap so that we can work to maybe emulate these types of MSPs. So to help explain this, I'm bringing back up that chart from earlier, but this time instead of the gross services margin section, I want to look at the EBITDA section. So earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So again, we have top quartile MSPs, the median, the bottom quartile, again, top 25% is what's considered best in class. And so when we look at an MSP's EBITDA, which basically net profit, you know, here we're seeing best in class MSPs are generating, you know, 21.4% net profit. Medium MSPs are generating half of that, 10.5% net profit, while bottom quartile MSPs, they're breaking even. You know, they're just making enough to cover kind of all of their costs. But this now means they have nothing left to kind of reinvest back into the business, and that's not a good place to be in. So looking at, you know, why is there such a difference in profitability levels between best-in-class MSPs and the other two sectors? And a big part of it is a lot of those MSPs just run a more operationally efficient MSP practice. You know, they make it a priority to build highly efficient service delivery models to kind of lower their overall cost of operations. And in this pillar, we're going to look at some of the ways that they can do that to give you some ideas that you may want to implement as well. But why does focusing on operational efficiency and striving to become more operationally mature, you know, why does that matter? Because again, when we look at best-in-class MSPs, they're actually able to make more money without actually needing to sign on more customers to be able to do so. And that's really where the efficiency story starts. So when we look at best-in-class MSPs, where they're doing, let's say, $2 million a year in revenues, they're driving a net profit of, you know, $428,000 to their bottom line because their EBITDA is running at 21.4%. And their cost of goods and expenses as a result of this EBITDA is around $1.572 million a year. Now, when we look at medium MSPs, and if we're using the same $2 million a year in revenues, they're only generating a net profit of $210,000 because again, it's a 10.5% EBITDA figure from the previous slide. And as a result, their cost of goods and expenses is much higher at $1.79 million a year. So when we talk about an MSP having a higher operational maturity level, we're talking about an MSP that takes the time to actively look at where can they find efficiency gains internally versus just letting the business run. So it's the difference between, again, those MSPs who focus on their business versus those that work in their business. So although generating new leads, finding new clients, very important for long-term growth, running an operationally efficient MSP is just as critical. MSPs really need to understand that failing to focus on things like automation, failing to generate efficiencies wherever they can, that can have a significant impact on an MSP's overall profitability in the bottom line, and it's going to impact the burn rate. And so in this example, this is really to the tune of $218,000, so almost $220,000 that could have been added to the bottom line if the median MSP decided to maybe focus on how they can improve things internally and strive to become more efficient. So how can MSPs work to improve their profitability with respect to enhancing their efficiency? If we look at best-in-class MSPs, again, they focus on 3 specific drivers with respect to their operational efficiency and their profitability. So they're looking at the effectiveness of their tool sets, they're looking at the effectiveness of their processes, and they're looking at the effectiveness of their labor. Tool set standardization, process standardization, both extremely important from a profitability perspective. I spoke a little bit on the tool set standardization today, but for our boot camp, I want to focus on ways where the MSP could be more effective in how they utilize their existing staff and their staff's time, because your HR labor costs are likely the most expensive costs that you have in running your MSP. So if we can do a better job of utilizing a tech's time more effectively, that can help reduce costs and improve the bottom line. So where are we seeing tech spending most of their time? We see tech spending a lot of their time just dealing with administrative tasks, attending ineffective, non-productive meetings. They're doing the timekeeping, the documentation. Some cases they're not doing it very well. They're failing to capture all the ticket information in a timely manner. And this is costing your MSP money, and it's impacting your revenues because of inaccurate or incomplete billing. They're also spending a lot of time searching for information, and that's a huge time waster. They're relying on Google to help them figure things out instead of leveraging like a centralized documentation system that everyone can access. They're spending too much time conducting, regular proactive maintenance tasks and activities because they're not leveraging automation effectively. And so they're doing a lot of these tasks manually. And that's causing them to spend too much time dealing with repetitive and redundant tasks that keep popping up and stealing more of their time. But looking at what should techs really be focusing on, it's the green sliver there. They should be focused on solving complex problems. Because when we look at complex problems, these are the problems that are greatly impacting an end user in a lot of cases. And if they're greatly impacting and affecting the end user, then that's going to create a poor customer experience, and that could lead to a potential churn or an SLA hit. So you want your techs to be focused on the green there. You want them spending their time solving your customers' most complex problems. And if you can do that, that's going to automatically help increase your efficiency. But to achieve that, we need to figure out how we can maximize the tech's efficiency in all those other areas that are being shown in this pie graph, because that's the only how we're going to be able to free up the time that's needed so that we can then focus on those complex network issues. So we're going to be looking at 4 operational levers that you can kind of play around with, make adjustments to, that's going to help reduce tech inefficiencies. Not an exhaustive list. I can keep you here for all week, but we're going to talk about 4. So we're going to talk about, how do you structure your staff and your processes? We're going to be looking at how do you leverage and utilize automation within your practice. We're going to be looking at how do you reduce and eliminate wasted time. And then the last lever, how can you reduce avoidable issues through regularly scheduled preventative maintenance? So we look at the first lever, how are we structuring our staff and processes, and we break it all apart. Various challenges that we're going to have to overcome. The first challenge is ensuring that we have the right tech for the right job. So looking at, do you have staff that's potentially underutilized? Maybe they're doing junior tasks, or maybe you have staff that's overutilized, trying to solve problems that they're not really trained for. And so some questions that you may ask for consideration. Are your resources focused on resolution, or are your techs juggling a lot of different issues? Because when your techs are juggling multiple issues, they're not being efficient. But if you're working on a resolution to a problem and you have it with the right resource, the right person, that's where you are maximizing your technical efficiency. And then looking at what sort of responsibilities do your top techs do, that your most experienced and most expensive techs have, are they focused on billable project work? Because that's really where the majority of your level 3's time should be focused on. They should be focused on projects that make your MSP money. And they should only be pulled in on escalations if it actually gets to that point. And then, do you manage your techs by customer groups or level of service? When speaking to some partners, I'll hear that they have, a group of engineers, and this group only will deal with a specific group of customers because their customers really, really like them. I get it from a customer satisfaction perspective. We all love it when we have that person that we can connect with, but it's not a great business practice to be setting up your MSP like that. Allowing your engineers, as wonderful as they may be, to be the face of your organization and having them only interact with specific customers, that's going to put your MSP in a bad place in the event that that engineer or that tech happens to leave your organization. Because if they leave because your customers associate your MSP with that tech, it'd be very easy for customers to follow the tech and leave along with them because their loyalty is to the tech, not to your MSP. And so the best practice is that your engineers should be set up by level of service, because that is the way that we're going to be able to align properly the skill set to the problem. So what do best-in-class MSPs do better or do a little bit differently? Number one, they focus their techs on specific areas of service delivery. The proactive managed services section, that's their NOC, their Network Operations Center. Reactive services is the service desk. Best-in-class MSPs keep the NOC and the service desk completely separate. And then they have techs that primarily work on projects. And so they increase their efficiency and their accountability by only putting their top techs on projects who then get loaned out as needed to, maybe the NOC or maybe to the service desk if needed. Second thing that they do is that they tier their service desk. You should expect a tier 1 tech to solve about 75% of the service desk tickets that they receive on their own, either via their own knowledge from their head or by having them being able to leverage some sort of centralized knowledge base or documentation system for any other additional information that they may happen to need to help solve that issue themselves. You should then expect a tier 2 to solve 15 to 20% of the issues that they receive from a tier 1 tech via the escalation process, and that really leaves just 5 to 10% of the remaining issues that then get routed to the top tier techs, those most valuable techs. And this is really the structure that best-in-class MSPs are putting in place for their ticket management. But I've spoken with MSPs where it seems to be a little bit contrary to how they would run their business, where they're running their service desk like a queue, and it's just the next person in line who's next available. They pull up the ticket and then they begin working it, regardless of the issue or whatever the tech skill set is. So what are some ideas that you can consider adding to your roadmap, put into practice if maybe this is something that you're not really doing today? First, make sure that you were reserving, make sure that you were reserving your top 3 techs for project work and escalations only. And then if you do have to split a tech, between multiple services, ensure that you're disciplined about it. Maybe schedule some days or times, for that tech, and then only have them focus on that single service area. Looking at challenge number 2, here we're looking at process design and we're looking at documentation. And this involves taking the time to create the right set of processes, put them in place. But again, this is another area that a lot of MSPs are a little bit challenged in because they don't feel that they have the time to do so. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing, right? But by taking the time to kind of build out your processes, it can provide massive uplifts in terms of your overall profitability. So looking at some questions for consideration, do your techs follow, some sort of documented process to work tickets? Like as an example, do you set time limits, 20, 30 minutes max for a junior engineer to work on an issue before you decide to escalate it? If the junior engineer can't resolve that issue within this allotted time, that's when it does need to be escalated. And again, another simple best practice that a lot of our best-in-class MSPs follows as it relates to their service desk. And then looking at, do you have the processes in place to ensure that you have the best resources working the issue? So this is where we're thinking about, does your knowledge rest with the technicians, or do you maintain some sort of documented, centralized documentation system for everyone to use? I used to see this all the time when I was in account management, where all of the knowledge for N-Central or for Insight would reside in the head of one single person. And then that person would leave and the MSP would be scrambling, trying to get caught up. You never want all of the knowledge, for anything to sit with one single individual, because then they become a silo. And if they leave that business, you become stuck. So definitely we want to make sure that we have implemented some sort of centralized documentation in place. Everyone can access it so that we don't have all this knowledge in one individual's head. So looking at what best-in-class MSPs do differently, they do ensure that they have a well-defined escalation process in place. They ensure that their lowest tier tech, that they have the proper skill sets needed to get the work done, but also at the same time, they're not allowed to kind of get mirrored up because the right resources isn't working on the issue. So as an example, using a network down issue, that's immediately escalated to a tier 2 resource, because you don't really want a level 1 tech looking at why maybe a router or a switch is down. That generally level 1s tend to be more like Windows desktop techs, not necessarily networking techs. And then if a tier 1 tech can't solve an issue or doesn't have a clear guaranteed resolution plan within, say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, then that's when it gets escalated onto the tier 2 resource. And so some things that you can look at adding to your roadmap, if this is something that you're not doing today, start really documenting, your different templates to ensure that your techs are capturing kind of all the information that's needed for an issue or for a project. We don't need to be fancy at this point. Formatting doesn't really matter, but just start with something. We have MSPs that started with Word docs. Great starting point if you just want to start with that. Making sure that if you are doing something 3 times or more, you have to look at a way to automate it. Like that manual work is just killing your margin. So if you're doing the same repetitive tasks, and usually the guideline is if you're doing something 3 times or more, figure out a way to automate that. And then if you don't have standard operating procedures in place, again, kind of going back up to number 1, start documenting all those repetitive tasks, all of those common problems so that you can solve issues faster and more efficiently. Because having documented SOPs, standard operating procedures in place for those repetitive tasks, that increases accuracy. So it means getting the issue resolved correctly the first time around, and it reduces the time that's needed for the tech to actually resolve the issue. And so, there's some little napkin math that Joe has done that I stole from his boot camps. Again, kind of little nuggets of insight, information from the industry, best-in-class MSPs. Without a documentation system in place, technicians are wasting on average 30% of their time just searching for information, asset information, application information, configuration details, installers, passwords, that type of thing. But if an MSP went ahead and invested in some sort of centralized documentation system, for a typical $2 million a year MSP, that could easily translate into a savings of at least $75,000 a year in labor. Looking at the second operational lever that we can play with, make adjustments to, is how are you doing in terms of leveraging automation within your MSP? So the number one challenge that we typically always hear is, I just don't have time for it. You know that you should be leveraging automation more, but MSPs are just struggling with, how do you carve out time for it? So some questions for consideration. How often are you using automated scripts today to resolve client issues? Do you have an automation guru in a company, in your company today? And then, are you carving out time for someone to implement or maybe tweak automation strategies, every month? Because again, if you're doing, kind of going back to, if you're doing something 3 times or more, there was an MSP that I used to work with over in Europe, and he used to say, if you're doing something twice, you're learning. If you're doing something 3 times or more, you're wasting money. So just kind of another take on that. He was a little bit more blunt from that. Doing something twice, you're learning. 3 times or more, you're wasting money. Automation is what helps eliminate that wasted time from repetitive tasks, which will save you money. Customers, they don't care about the work and how you do it or how it gets done. They're paying you to deliver the results. Keep my people working, keep them online, get them back to work quickly as possible in the event of any sort of network issue. That is really what they care about and what they're paying you for. And then automation provides the results without your team actually having to put in those hours. So looking at what our best-in-class MSPs do better, do a little bit differently, they are very deliberate about their approach to automation. It is the number one thing that they look at in terms of everything that they do within their business and how they manage their business to reduce human capital and human costs. So it's an ongoing effort for them. They make automation just part of their company culture. There's MSPs out there, they incent on it, they bonus on it, they train on it, they focus, they put such a high focus on it, and it becomes kind of a team and a company-wide initiative that's not just, kind of put on the shoulders of one individual. And you really can't compete today, if you are not automating. With a lot of the commoditization that's taking place in today in terms of pricing, if you're finding that your prices have to be a little bit higher because of the labor component, then look at what you can do from an automation perspective to kind of help reduce that labor to help improve your margins. They also abstract their models from the fee-for-service model. Again, kind of going back to, what is the customer paying for? They're paying for outcomes. They're not paying you for the hours that your team invests to get the work done. Managed services, by its very nature, it's not about time. But a lot of our partners, they still came from the break-fix world, even though we've been in managed services for 20, 25 years. In some cases, there's MSPs out there where it is a little bit difficult to break that mentality. So some ideas that maybe we could look at adding to our MSP roadmap, put into practice if this is something that you're not doing today. I think first and foremost, putting in place an automation like czar. Someone in your company, I'm sure, would love to have this responsibility. And then you can leverage them to drive it out to the rest of the team. If you've never done anything like this before, just start slowly. There's so many canned, out-of-the-box automation scripts that are available within N-Central and Insight, or if you're using another RMM, I'm sure they have a ton of automation built in there as well. And allow this individual the time to work exclusively on automation projects and allow them to kind of learn and test their scripts. This work, although it's going to take away, initially, it is going to pay for itself with amazing time savings in the future. And by allowing this person to become immersed in automation, that's when they're going to just start naturally working with the different scripts, and that's where they're going to be able to start tweaking them and start customizing them for how you operate and run your particular business. And so that's going to prove very highly valuable later on. And so then you would go and you would rank the automation projects by time savings, by potential frequency of use, time to complete, maybe different automation projects. Usually when MSPs are just kind of starting out and putting a focus on this particular lever, they start with the reactive service desk. Looking at what's coming in via the service desk and looking at, what is the team doing? Are they doing certain things 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times? Those are the tasks that are high priority that get automation built around them. You may also consider using contests or bounty programs to get automation ideas from your employees, because no one really has better visibility into potential automation areas than the people that are your frontline employees that are doing the work. There's a story that goes a while back, but we used to have an MSP that he would tape $100 bills to his monitor. And if someone found an activity that could be automated and save them a minimum 15 minutes, and it was validated and tested, they can come and grab one of those $100 bills. And, just something simple, but it's all about really breeding that culture of automation. And the last point is, like, when we're starting this project, don't reinvent the wheel. Again, we have the resources to help your team get started on this. Our whole nerd team, not me, but everybody else is available and hold multiple boot camps and office hours on how to build automation into your MSP. The technical nerds have their automation cookbook that has, I think, 900 different automation scripts and PowerShell scripts in there. So it's not as if you have to start this project from scratch. Leverage what we have, learn, and then tweak as you become more proficient and comfortable with it. Because by some estimates, 60, and I think this number that Joe gave me is a little bit low, but at least 60% of your managed services delivery processes can be automated. I know Joe has told me that he works with MSPs where it's close to 85–90% of their managed services delivery processes are automated out of the different RMMs. Now, again, this didn't happen right away. It took years of focus and dedication, time, education, but it is possible. And again, we do have the resources to help you get there. I would love it if, the majority of our MSPs could achieve 60% automation, because I think right now we're tracking 15%, 10 to 15% automated currently. If there's anybody out there that knows what their number is, put it in the question panel, because I would love to be proved that this number is improving. But think about, how much revenue, if you are at kind of the 15% automation level, how much additional revenue and time you can invest back into your business if you can at least maybe get to that 60% median in terms of your activities. And then looking at the third lever, making, in terms of what can we do to eliminate all of those time wasters that steal your tech's very valuable billable time. So challenge number one, techs aren't spending the time where you need them to spend their time on. And so this is where we need to look at, do you measure and track maybe the amount of time that your techs are not working on client-related activities? Are they doing some things on the side? Are they writing their own code for something for some other reason? Is that kind of non-working client time being tracked? Do you track time that might be being spent on internal technical issues, like, the time that's spent, maintaining your MSP internal systems? Do you track how much travel time, like going on site, is being done, and looking at, is there a way that this time can be reduced, either by working remotely or, I don't know, maybe using some sort of centralized dispatch? Looking at what best-in-class MSPs do better, do a little bit differently. They are consistently looking at ways to reduce time waste. They're always looking at their tickets to be able to see where the service desk might be wasting some time and where time could be saved, because time is money. And so they look at their tickets typically on a weekly basis, and they stay on top of this, and they use this to then implement automation and process improvements wherever need be. So again, kind of going back to that, this is just for best-in-class MSPs, this is just their culture that they have bred, that they have created for themselves. It's not an occasional focus where they look at their tickets. This is ticket management and ticket review. It's just part of their DNA. And they leverage documentation to ensure consistency in their service delivery, because they know that good, accessible documentation, it's a critical component to their service delivery methods. And they make meetings purposeful. They use agendas to keep their meeting on point. They use agendas to help prevent the meandering that happens a lot of cases when meetings go awry. And then the business owner, key company executives, they sit in on those meetings to keep those meetings on task and on focus. Because how many meetings have you been to where your manager hasn't been there? Nothing gets done. You're chatting about the weekend, you're chatting about upcoming plans, you're chatting about anything except work when your manager's not on those meetings. They also are proactive in seeking out and implementing tool sets to help to look at where they might be eliminating time and help eliminate those wasted times. They also establish and monitor KPIs for tech efficiency, and they will implement in some cases bonuses around that. They report on it. They discuss, their tech efficiency ideas very openly, and they don't, they're not tracking 30 or 40 different KPIs. They're really starting with just a couple of them, and then as you get used to maybe tracking metrics, add in a few more. And so looking at some ideas that you can consider, again, adding to your roadmap if you're not doing anything like this today. First one being using lower cost resources to help your higher cost techs with any of those non-technical issues, like following up or scheduling appointments with clients. You don't need to use your most expensive people to do that. Waiting on hold with vendor support. Don't let your most expensive people do that. Gathering background information on a reported issue. These are all easy tasks, manageable tasks that your lower cost techs could do to free up time for your higher cost techs. And then making sure that you're doing maybe a short 15-minute daily service huddle to prepare the team for the day, instead of those bigger, longer meetings during the week. And one MSP told me he actually does his meetings on a Wednesday. So he doesn't like meetings on Mondays because that's where you get into kind of the chit chat about, what did you do on the weekend? That's a time waste. And he doesn't like doing them on Thursdays or Fridays because that's where they're starting to talk about what are you doing this weekend? Again, chit chat, time waste. So he does them Wednesday mornings, when we're still in the middle of the week. It's that hump day, but we're still in the middle of the week. Everyone is still very much focused on maybe some issues that they've had maybe Monday or Tuesday, or thinking about some things that are coming up either Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so it helps to keep the meeting very, very focused. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. And then when techs are on site, making sure that they do their ticket documentation while they are there. And so this then transforms their admin time into billable documentation time. And it also makes your tickets timely and much more accurate. And then focus your techs on solving problems remotely wherever possible, unless it's emergency. Really, do you have to go on site? Unless you are hardware failure, swapping out, or reconfig or something where you have to be on site, most of the problems you can get resolved remotely. And then making sure that we're leveraging tools to reduce time waste. There's so many great tools that are coming out now, especially by leveraging AI to really help reduce time waste. So some more napkin math from Joe. 10 minutes a day by 5 techs, that can add up to almost 5.5 weeks per year of labor that you can then put back into your pool and into your business. And so just thinking of, what kind of stuff is in your business that you just can't get to because you don't have the time? Maybe sales and marketing as an example from that. So just by putting in place some of these simple activities, there's your time to dedicate to sales and marketing now. And then last lever, reducing avoidable tickets. So what are you doing to reduce the amount of tickets that your service desk receives every day? Because this is a really big one. And challenge number one, clients are affected by issues that easily could have been avoided. So looking at some questions for consideration, does proactive work generally get ignored, or maybe it's completed improperly because of all of the reactive tickets that you have going on that you receive? You're probably getting a lot of these reactive tickets because the proactive work isn't being completed like it needs to be. So again, kind of whole chicken the egg analogy. So if you're not continually optimizing the environment, ensuring that the network is clean, patched, and up to date, that's when the tickets are going to continue to pile up and come in. And then also looking, do you measure customer satisfaction as a way of knowing, that your techs are resolving reported issues completely? Because if you're not measuring customer satisfaction, then you're just assuming your techs are doing a great job. But if the issue keeps reoccurring and it's the same tech doing the work, then you may have a problem tech, and we now need to take some action. So maybe there might be additional training that might be needed. Maybe there's some additional coaching or oversight that might be needed. But if the issue keeps recurring and these other, solutions aren't working, this is where you may need to make the decision to let that tech go. And understandably, letting employees go is a very tough thing to do, but we always need to be thinking about the betterment of the business and the better user experience we can provide to our customers. So what do our best-in-class MSPs do a little bit better, a little bit differently? They do schedule in daily time for techs to do the proactive work as their primary activity. And so this is where they are ticketing their maintenance in their system. So the engineer has to go into the system, perform the maintenance task across all their customers. They put in their notes that the maintenance has been completed, and then they have to close out the ticket and then reset the date for the next time that the ticket work has to be done. And by doing something like this, nothing is falling through the cracks, and it will pay off in terms of fewer support tickets. They're also leveraging automation tools as a way to solve problems in the background without a tech having to actually get involved, like parsing log files, restarting services, cleaning up drive space. Those are, some pretty easy ones that can be done. We have partners that will put kind of a sys-tray icon on the user's machines, and they will train their users to kind of click on a button to run like CCleaner as an example. So they can run CCleaner on their own. And then if there's any issues after that, then at least that one thing has been done and it can be eliminated. And this is something that you don't need to do for them. The user, if you train them properly, as you're part of your welcome or as part of an onboarding, this is something they can probably do for themselves, especially if you are offering fully managed programs. The less time that you can spend talking to your customers, solving problems for them, that's just all time savings for you that you can then redirect elsewhere. So looking at ways that you can empower, especially for fully managed clients, where the employees can empower themselves. They also ensure that issues are fixed properly and completely the first time around, so that clients don't have to keep opening up follow-up tickets. Follow-up tickets, a very poor customer experience. I'm going through that right now with KitchenAid. I would like to take my KitchenAid fridge and throw it through my front door because I have to keep repeating myself and keep opening up service order tickets with them. Very, very frustrating from a customer's user experience. And customer satisfaction directly attributes to overall business valuation. A private equity firm, they will go and speak and talk to your end users and ask, how is this MSP doing? Because they want to get an understanding as what the support experience is like. And if they do happen to get a negative feedback, that they might pass on you and go to look at someone else that maybe has a more refined ticket management automation process in place. So looking at some ideas that we can add to maybe our roadmap, investing time, fine-tuning your monitoring, fine-tuning your alerts to avoid those false positives, because really every false positive that you receive probably burns anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes of a valuable text time. Training your techs so they know your tools fully. Allow for regular training for your techs, just not on the technology that you sell, but on the tools that you use as well to deliver your services. And here I'm specifically thinking about the RMM, right? You know, I'm thinking about Insight, I'm thinking about N-Central, or again, any other RMM that you might be using. One of the questions and the issues that I would run into when I was on account management was, you know, MSPs not staying up to date on the latest versions or the new releases when we came out with them. They knew the version that they onboarded with, but they weren't really up to date on the new features, the new versions. And so when new features were released, or if there was an issue that could have been resolved with the new feature, but they just weren't on the latest version, they weren't able to leverage it, that's a time waste. So thinking about, do you mandate your techs go and take the new training that we offer on the newest version so that they can keep up to date on the latest features? Or are they still using Insight and N-Central in the same way when you first joined us as a partner? And then lastly, picking kind of one major service incident a month and using that to debrief with the entire team. You know, review what the team did well, review what they can improve upon for next time, and then that becomes part of the new SOP moving forward. Looking at a second challenge where maybe the service desk seems to be fixing the same problem over and over again, and no one identifies the root cause. So looking at questions for consideration, you know, do you have a process in place or someone assigned to look for repetitive tickets to try and determine what the root cause is so that you can fix this recurring issue? Avoidable tickets burn time, drive down customer satisfaction. You know, those tickets that might just be sitting there hot and no one is really able to resolve them, you really do need to figure out a way to be able to resolve those tickets in a more reasonable time frame, because missing root causes, they can lead to major service problems. You know, so if someone is not resolving the issue and it causes a major network outage at a customer site, you're going to have a pretty angry, upset customer, and they're not going to be quite pleased with you, especially if it's because you missed something. Having a high number of avoidable tickets, not just annoying, obviously, but it could be indicative of major problems on your service desk. It could mean that you don't have the right people in place manning the desk, or maybe as a business owner, maybe we're running the wrong processes. You know, do I have a service desk manager or a NOC manager that might just not be the right fit? You know, as a business owner, these are questions you might need to be asking yourself. So looking at what best-in-class MSPs do to avoid avoidable tickets, they do put in process a place to examine tickets on a monthly or quarterly basis, typically by client, to try and identify root cause problems that may be driving those recurring tickets. And then they're looking for additional areas for training or technology that could be improved. You know, maybe the team could use some more training. So implementing maybe some lunch and learns, where maybe the level 2s could train the level 1s, because maybe there's some new technology that's coming out that's been deployed at the customer site, and maybe they just don't know how to use it and how to fix a client's issue with it. Maybe you have techs that have to get certified in something. So looking at some ideas we can add to our roadmap, making sure that we are auditing our top 5 clients' tickets monthly. Chances are your top 5 clients account for a good deal of your monthly recurring revenue. Going back to that 80-20 rule, elevate your service delivery to them by looking more closely at their tickets on a more regular basis, because these are definitely customers that we do not want to lose. Making sure that we're auditing the monitored devices of our top 10 clients at least quarterly, ensuring that they're being properly monitored. That's what's going to help us spot issues early on. You know, monitoring is not a set it and forget it. Maintenance is not a set it and forget it. It does evolve as the technology evolves, so it needs constant reevaluation. And it may be a little bit difficult to be able to audit all of your clients on a regular basis. If that's the case, making sure that we are focusing on our largest ones. And then by looking at root causes to issues, that is really a VCIO function, right? Like if we can't resolve the issue through automation, then it is up to the VCIO or whoever fulfills that role within your executive business reviews to go to the end customer. Tell them in your review, we have these recurring issues that keep coming up in your environment. We have to look at investing in new software, new technology, new processes in order to resolve this. But until we do, there's going to continue to be a productivity hit to your business, and we would like to correct that for you. And so these VCIO business, these account business reviews, these are imperative because it helps, again, keeps you connected. Very important to stay connected to your customers. And it helps to combat those common objectives that maybe customers might be giving you around, I'm paying you all this money every month and I'm not getting anything for it. So this allows you to kind of have those conversations, uncover issues, which will then really help drive your own upsell and cross-sell opportunities and maybe introduce some new services, technology, and project work. So napkin math, best-in-class MSPs typically are able to resolve 90% of their service desk tickets via first contact. So really looking at comparing this to your own service desk, are you able to hit this metric yourself? If you're not, and if you're far off, then really kind of strategizing what's keeping you from preventing you from reaching this level. Is it because we're not leveraging maybe self-healing? Maybe we're not leveraging reactive service tools. Maybe we're not analyzing those repeat tickets, and so we can try and get that good understanding if we do have a problem somewhere. Maybe it's a problem that could easily be pushed over to our NOC and have the NOC put together, maybe an SOP or maybe some automation in place so that that issue never reoccurs. So again, just wanted with this last section, put together some concrete, simple ideas that we've heard from our best-in-class MSPs that are doing these types of activities that has really proved extremely valuable in helping to reduce their labor costs. They were the ones that have been using these best practices themselves to really kind of elevate their business and really transform it into a more efficient, more profitable business without really having to sign on a lot of new clients. So the idea with this last section is if you can just maybe grab one idea per lever, it will have a huge impact on your company. And just getting these ideas into your roadmap, then putting an action plan around it and seeing what kind of impact it can have on moving the needle into your MSP burn rate would be pretty incredible to see. So again, if you are looking for some resources to help improve the level of automation, your technical efficiency within your MSP, then don't look at me, but look at all the other gentlemen on that slide that can help you with this third pillar. Again, we have the automation boot camps that are headed up by the gentlemen, Mark Andre, Jason Murphy, Paul Kelly, Joe Furla. These gentlemen offer office hours. They are all dedicated to helping MSPs improve their automation. And then again, if you can't attend any of their live boot camps, we do have them on demand as well. They also write, again, the automation cookbook, so many blogs, like there are so much resources out there to help you with this particular lever. All right, so hopefully today's boot camp really demonstrated, how important it is to have an actionable, executable business roadmap and how you can go about creating one for your MSP. If you've never done anything like this before, it's a good time to start. Just don't let the excuses get in the way. I've heard excuses like, I don't have time to work on something like this, Steph. Having a plan isn't going to change that. Anyway, I'm already working long hours. I just don't have the cycles to take on any more work. Or maybe you might be thinking, what, Steph, I'm just a small MSP. I only have a couple of employees, so I really don't feel that I need to have a plan. It's kind of all in my head. Or maybe you're thinking, yes, I do want to work on this. This is important to me. I just need to tie off a couple of these projects first, and then I'm going to get around to it. Especially with this last one, you don't have to have a clear the plate mentality before you start working on an initiative like this. There's always going to be customer issues. There's always going to be employee issues that you can easily distract yourself and throw yourself into. And you just want to be disciplined to not allow yourself to get pulled into that. And I think these excuses are really the reasons why you should be making that commitment to developing that roadmap for your business so that you can fulfill your MSP's maximum potential. Because again, the idea with a roadmap is wherever you are today with your MSP, you can begin to make those incremental changes so that a quarter from now, 2 quarters from now, 6 months, 8 months from now, you have advanced your MSP a little bit further. And so you're in a little bit better place than maybe you were 2 or 3 quarters ago. So kind of looking back, what I started off at the beginning of this boot camp, there is this chasm that's growing between best-in-class MSPs who are charging appropriately for their services, who are managing their costs appropriately. They're leveraging automation. They're creating efficiencies wherever possible. And those bottom 25% who are still kind of in the throes of working in their business and working ineffectively and not charging enough for their services. And that gap is only going to get wider as we move beyond and move forward. And there's a lot of tremendous opportunities to be had for MSPs moving forward, especially when you look at what's happening in the security landscape and what's happening in the mid-enterprise and mid-market space. And so kind of want to end it with, what are you going to focus on in the next 365 days to help reduce and close the gap for your MSP. So looking at what you can do next, if anybody's looking for homework, again, feel free to take this boot camp again. It is available on demand within the MSP Institute, dating myself, within Enable You. Again, if you are having trouble trying to locate it, just send me an email, put it in the question panel. I can send you the link for it, especially if you wanted to listen to it again or pass it along to somebody else. Make sure that you have downloaded, if you're looking for that MSP product roadmap planning template for you to kind of help jumpstart things. Any questions that you have, your can't even talk anymore. Your PSM, your partner success manager, will be able to help with you, or consider registering for one of my office hours, or send me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to help wherever I can. And then last slide, just a reminder of the boot camps that are coming up for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. QR code there to register if you haven't registered yet. I have a brand new one that's coming out October 8th. Don't let your MSP become the next big headline. That was the one where I was talking about how I was referencing 3 court cases and how these court cases could have been absolutely avoided had MSPs just done these 10 fundamental steps. So we're going to be reviewing those 10 fundamental steps. Lewis Pope is going to be, our head security nerd, is going to be co-presenting with me on that one. And then October 15th, 22nd, and 29th, this is where we get into the big program design, program development. How do you build, price, market, sell your cybersecurity program? So we're going to be providing a framework of what your cybersecurity programs could look like. How do we then price them? And then how do we sell and overcome the objections, with the big ones being, they cost a lot of money, I don't want them. We're going to be talking about that on the October 29th boot camp. All right, so thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to attend this latest boot camp. Again, any questions that you have, my email address is there. Never hesitate to reach out. We're here to help. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good week. Take care, guys.